Today, we are talking with Andrew Battenhorst. He is the manager of Pacific BMW in Glendale, California. And good old Andrew, they just won at Pacific BMW the #1 BMW CCRC shop. Yay! Can you hear the applause from the crowd? We are talking with Andrew about all of the incredible things he has done there. He's been there for almost 5 years. He has completely changed that shop and what they are doing out of that shop. Everything that we talk about today is so applicable. It doesn't matter what size of shop that you are in or that you are running. This is something you're going to want to take notes on and start implementing in your shop. Check it out.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hey, welcome back to the Body Bangin' podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you are watching on YouTube right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of these episodes. And if you're listening on, any of the other podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, make sure you're following us so that you get alerted when a new one drops. So today, we have actually a guest that has been on with us before, Andrew Battenhorst. Hello, Andrew.
Thanks for having me back.
The crowd goes wild. He's back.
Hard to believe it's been 2 years since we last spoke. A lot has changed.
A lot has changed in the world. So last time Andrew and I spoke, we were mid-COVID talking about the war on talent, and everybody was dealing with technician issues. And we were just talking about before we came live on the show that we still are. So I'll give you a little brief background on Andrew. Are you the general manager there at Pacific BMW Collision Center?
I'm just in charge of the body shop here.
The body shop. Right. So Pacific BMW is a dealership, and Pacific BMW that Andrew manages is the body shop side of it. And that's in Glendale, California, out by me, Southern California. Andrew and I actually used to work like 10 steps away from each other and didn't even know it.
Probably cross paths every few days without even...
Right?
Yeah.
So Andrew's been in the industry since '99, started out as a detailer, worked his way up. He also worked on the insurance side for a little bit and then came back to his senses and came back to the collisions.
Saw the light.
Yes, right. He worked for Pride Auto Body for a long time. If you guys are familiar with them, they had several different locations. They ended up selling out, and now he's managing the collision center at Pacific BMW. And I want to say, first of all, congratulations, because if y'all don't know, Andrew's shop of 200, where is it? I wrote the number down, 272 shops in North America that are CCRC shops, which is the BMW certified shops. His shop, Pacific BMW, is ranked #1.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. I owe a lot of it to my team. They're really the ones that got us there, and we honestly did not. We bounced around in the network, in the scoring for the last few years in various positions in the top 10 normally.
Right.
A lot of great shops in the whole network, and it's very fierce competition. So I'm very, very happy and honored that we were at the top of the dog pile. So I'm very proud.
Yeah, and BMW has a great collision program. And the people that head it are awesome people, great resources for the shop. So when it comes to you guys winning this award, this is a big deal. I mean, shops really try, and I'm sure it's steep. I have a lot of shops on the BMW CCRC program. It's steep competition.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Olson, who I know you've interviewed for, I mean, he won it 3 years in a row. He runs a very tight operation. And before him, I know Ed Cobbett, who was at New Century and also at Spectrum. He had won it multiple times. So I knew that the caliber of those managers and how they run their operations, that BMW really is looking for the top level, operators in the network. And I think I was told afterwards that the point spread between the top 5 was very, very close.
I'm
so
sure.
Like I said, it is very challenging to win. And there's lots of criteria that go into the scoring to be able to win overall. I mean, it's everything from your shop operations, your community involvement, your customer service scores, a lot of your overall collision metrics.
Right.
And some of it is also subjective based on the upper management on the BMW program to, if it's tight, they come up with kind of their own internal mechanism to determine who's, the number one.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what do you think that, there are a lot of great shops out there and everybody's got their little formula for success. And your shop has been performing really well. You've been there for almost 5 years. I think you were saying in 2 days, you've got your 5-year anniversary. What do you feel? I'm sure you have a lot of differentiators at your shop. What do you feel like you're doing really well that you're super proud of?
I think when it comes to, it's hard to narrow it down to like one thing, but to kind of like a cake that's been baked all perfect with everything decorated on top. And not only it looks good, but it tastes good.
Right.
So it's kind of a big part of it is process. That's probably the overarching thing, is having good developed processes that allow the technicians to be efficient, that allow them to not be wasteful, and to really put people in the right spot and make sure that the quality can be duplicated very consistently throughout the whole, whoever's doing it, that it's not challenging for them. And it's clear to see what the goal is for each department.
Okay.
Having a defined process is really big, because then that allows me to not necessarily have to wear my fireman's hat all the time, putting out fires in the shop. Which I think is one of the biggest things that plague most, current day body shop managers, is that we're dealing with so much of the managing aspect and not so much of the leading component.
Right.
Of the shop. So I usually look at, in my opinion, I think that having the good processes kind of laid the foundation for me to focus on developing all the technicians and the people on our team to be able to get them, it gets them buy-in because they see we're invested in them.
Yeah.
And also they see that I'm supporting them in making sure that they have everything they need to have a good career. So it kind of lays a solid framework for that. And it also takes away a lot of the, like I said, the fireman, syndrome that I think we all face, because now you have things running fairly smoothly. It allows you to focus on growing the business, not necessarily being in the weeds of every aspect of, I got to call this customer, and then I got to check on parts, and then I need to talk to that insurance adjuster. And then before you know it, it's 4:30 and you probably haven't taken a lunch break and you haven't stuff you set out to, right?
Right.
I do all the time, and I'm sure you do too. Yes. So I think that's kind of like the first part of it. And me, I'm more of an empathetic leader, and I try to make sure that everybody feels like they're cared for. And I use I don't know if you've ever heard of the Gallup employee engagement stuff that they have.
No.
Okay, so Gallup is well known. It's not body shop specific, but Gallup has done tremendous amounts of studies on employee engagement and disengagement, which are all contributing factors to why employees are looking for employment in other places, why they may not perform their best, and so on and so forth. So I like to use the 12 questions that they have in there that is basically a survey I give twice a year to my team for them to anonymously answer how they feel about what I'm doing. And to
I love that.
Yeah, it's been a game changer for me. So I think you can you go on Gallup's website, they can give you forms and all kinds of surveys and tools to help you work with employee engagement and all that. A lot of that came through BMW. They have partnership training includes that. And then they do also little webinars to help train you on it. And then I kind of ran with it further. And I don't know a lot of managers doing that because it can sometimes be a painful look.
Right.
They don't hold back. They're going to tell you bad whether you want to hear it or not. And I have found that for me to grow as their leader, that's really one of the most important ways for me to take what's maybe bothering them or irritating them or maybe disengaging them from their work to improve.
I love the fact that you're opening yourself up to hearing uncomfortable things, because I think as leaders, for people in general, for self-growth of any kind, to be the constructive criticism without the judgment on yourself, to be able. So if you're doing a poll like this twice a year, which is amazing because you're really having your finger on the pulse, to get that data and information back, that can be a massive ego check. You can really get angry with yourself and frustrated with yourself, or defensive and angry. So to be able to implement something like this and continue with it, I think you really have to get to a place of, I'm going to take this in, I'm going to learn from it. I'm not going to be in judgment of myself and anger of myself, because then that would be like lack mindset. And that can be very, then for you, demotivating. You're trying to motivate everybody else. Now you've demotivated your own self, right?
Yeah, it could be a slippery slope. And that's why I think if anybody, wants to emulate what I did, take the time to read about it, learn about it, and go through some of the basic training that they offer. And because I think, we briefly talked earlier, my shop is unique in that I only have, the oldest person on my team is like in their early 50s. So they're Gen Xers, I believe, somewhere in that.
Right.
Everybody else is, and I'm 39, so I'm on the cusp of millennial.
Right.
And everybody else is younger than me.
Yeah.
So everybody's either a millennial or a Gen Z. Mm-hmm. So I have found that I need to have a good connection with them to understand their pains, their issues, their challenges, and being available to help them and support them shows that I'm willing to be in the trenches with them, rather than just sitting up in a tower and telling them barking orders out. And that's not my style. And I think by trying to get on that level with them and using the tools that I have in the shop, it has allowed us to succeed where others haven't. Yeah. And I think that's what, when BMW saw, they've been in the shop countless times to see
right.
They audit us and everything. Yeah. And I think when they see that, they see the processes and they see the visual things, but then they also look at, well, what are you doing to develop your people and get them there? Well, it's not just one silver bullet. It has to be a combination of things to do it. Even like equipment stuff, right? There's nothing that pisses off a technician more than having faulty equipment that doesn't let them get their job done and pay and all that. Right. So there's a lot of other, things that have to get built into that to make it a cohesive system where people are excited to wake up to come into the shop and work, and not just, look at the alarm clock and realize, oh, but this is great. I get to drive into this dump again and be here for hours, right?
Right. Well, I think you made a good point. And I follow Andrew on LinkedIn, and he posted recently a picture of some of his team members in a group. And it was beautiful to see the varying ages in the shop. Especially, there are a lot of shops out there that have different ages in the front. So your CSRs, your estimators, things like that. But actual technicians, painters, that type of thing, to have the different age groups, I was like, look at him go. Yeah. I love it. So I think that's point number one, is interesting. First of all, how did you attract that talent to your shop? How did you find those youngsters then?
So part of them came from the BMW STEP program. So that apprenticeship program they have for body and paint training. And a lot of those guys are like fresh out of high school, or maybe they just graduated from UTI.
Right.
Into a more OEM specific type training.
Right.
So some of them have come through there. Actually, 3 of them have come out of there.
Wow.
And the others all have been based on just searching for, when I interview, my interview process is somewhat lengthy. And I ask a lot of probably unorthodox questions to gather what their mindset is like, what motivates them, what inspires them, and what, how that is going to mesh with my existing culture.
Right.
So that whole idea of developing a shop culture and having something that makes it inviting for people to want to come work here, I have to balance all that with potential candidates to see how they work. So doing personality assessments and probably 1 or 2 rounds of interviewing to make sure that they are the right candidate. And even sometimes doing a hands-on skills check and having that candidates spend maybe an hour or two with my team
Yeah.
to get check the vibe from the team to see what they think about this individual and how they would mesh in. Because they're the ones who are going to be working with them too.
Right.
So I would say it's got to be a good fit for both halves.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So how many people do you have total on your team there at that center?
I have 12 currently.
12. Okay. And I think that this is something, even for larger shops, that this is very doable. Yes, it takes more time, but look at the value. Because as you and I both know, and you listening, one weed takes out the whole garden. It's like, so vetting people, I don't know if that's the right word, but at least discovering who they are, what their motivators are, allowing them time to chat with the team. And then that helps your team feel like they are part of the process. It's not just, here you go, good luck to y'all.
And it's more, in my opinion, it's way more dangerous to have a high producing employee that maybe can flag, 250, 300, 320 hours of pay period, every 2 weeks. And they're an absolute toxic nightmare, bad attitude. And it's a poison that spreads through the whole shop.
Totally.
I can't operate the shop with the kind of culture that we need to have, where young people are going to want to be in here, which is of our industry, anyways. Who's going to want to be in a shop like that? We're going to when you have competing industries that pay, in the mid-20s an hour for starting wages, right? Who's going to want to sit next to a grumpy guy that's like, I leave me alone. I got to do all my stuff. I need to hit these hours. Money's my main motivator. That's not the main fit for what we look for.
Right.
And I think a lot of managers are fixated on the accounting side of what's going on in the shop because of, the pressure from above. And I'm not responsible for it too. Yeah. But there has to be a way to look past that and see what that does to the end of the line in the shop, to those employees that can sometimes feel like they're just a number. They're just a tool to generate hours or dollars or however you want to look at it.
Right. Well, the other thing that is really neat is bringing in the younger group. Is a lot of shop owners and managers have a difficult time, and even other people in the shop have a difficult time relating to them. And it's frustrating. Like I hear my dad comes over and my daughters who are teenagers will be talking to him. He's like, I don't understand. It's not like my dad's all that old, but it's like, he's just like, what is it with you kids? Like, I don't understand. So I think to that point, you're touching base with them on a regular basis so that you can understand them. You know what their motivators are. You know what their pain points are. It's like any relationship. The better that you know people and the deeper understanding you get with somebody, the more powerful and stronger the relationship can be, right?
Right.
And when they're feeling heard and they feel appreciated and understood, like, what a concept.
It's funny because when you look in history, like everybody's parents say, well, this new generation's the demise of the United States. We're all screwed because look how these guys, they put piercings in their face or they have tattoos in their head or die of weird color.
Yeah.
The end of it, we're all just people.
Right.
And I go to far too many meetings where I'm one of the younger guys in the room and I hear the reactions like these, this industry is all doom and gloom and that it's not possible to operate a good type of collision shop in this day and age, which I think we've proven that is it. We can be very successful. We give people a great career. They can make an amazing salary and have a home. And they're not that different. When people struggle to relate it, I think they just haven't taken the time to get to learn what they like and what they don't like. And sure, maybe they have different tastes in music or fashion or whatever, but we have a job to do on fixing a customer's car the right way. Yeah. And that all that other stuff should not cloud a manager's opinion of what somebody is or isn't.
Right. I'm going to interrupt this podcast for just one quick second because a lot of people wonder, Mickey, what is it that you even do besides host a podcast? Well, I do marketing, and really the biggest thing that I do is help you drive more traffic to your business. And not even just more traffic, but consistent traffic to your business. As a former shop owner, I know how important that is. So if that's something you're interested in, or you just want to talk about marketing or developing your business in general, feel free to reach out. You can visit collisioncentermarketing.com. There's a calendar on there, and you can just book a time that works for you, and we'll set up a phone call. Or you can email or call me, and my notes are down in the description of this episode. But I hope to hear from you. I'd love to help you build your business. But in the meantime, you better get back to this podcast because it's really good. I appreciate you saying that. Now, I want to go back a little bit in the beginning when we talked, because you made a really good point, and I think it's important to bring it back up. Like the main layer, when we're talking about this beautiful cake that looks great and it tastes great too. And the key to all of it, I think was a great point, was the process. And I feel like people skip over that. And we may have skipped over it because there's so many other things that we can talk about. But I feel like it is the key piece when, even in my own business, I feel it, even when I own my own shop, where there is no solid process, there are going to be problems. Right. So when you created, which I'm sure adapt and change, evolve over the course of time, but creating those processes, were those things do you have them written? What does that look like?
That's I am a firm believer, and you've probably seen on my LinkedIn posts, I'm a big supporter of lean theory and the Toyota production system. And I've worked with AkzoNobel with their A-Code program since 2008 or so is when I got introduced to it. And that at the very core of any process in the body shop, you can see whether it's checking in a car all the way to detailing it. I have defined steps for how long it should take to do each step, what the specific steps are, and then we have a quality measurement for those at the end of those steps, so that way the work product for that set of processes looks a certain way.
Right.
So it took me probably 2.5 years to develop all of that and fine-tuning it in between.
I bet.
I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect, but there was a lot of times where we had to redo something or change something. And I have process, boards and whatnot hanging in the shop that make it very clear, and they're defined. It's all posted and visible, but those aren't permanent. And I had the team help me develop the process.
Right.
So what I pose to them is that the process that we're doing, let's say for checking in a car, what is the value that we're trying to get out of that specific process, right? And then to simplify it down for the sake of conversation, a cohesive piece of information, of data that can be relayed to our repair planner so they can have the customer's concerns and the insurance information, the legal forms we need to have signed, photographs, and so on and so forth. Is that all done the same way for every customer every time they come here? So it's consistent, right?
Right.
And it also means that you're taking out the guesswork of, well, Billy Bob does it one way, but then Joe does it another way, and Ricky does it another way, right?
Yeah.
Because in most shops, people will start to interpret a process to how they see it's fit, whether it's efficient or it's not.
Right.
These processes, if we have an overarching goal of what that quality thing should be for that process, now we can have everybody doing it the same way each time. Yeah. And we're doing repetitive work. So in my shop, it's I'm BMW only, which is a little unique, but this can apply to any body shop. You're fixing cars every day. You paint cars every day. You write estimates every day, right? So all of those theories can be applied to each step of the entire body shop process from A to Z. And you have measurement points to know when something got skipped. And you measure those skips, right? Those delays or whatever you want to call them. And then use those as training opportunities to find out, okay, here's what's going on with that. So, and then I incentivize it. So I want them to be bought in that, hey, if you produce X quality for this process and you control your delays for this, for this particular set of tasks you got to do, you got some skin in the game. I'll give you some at the end of the month to reward you for the quality goal, right? So it's all about incentivizing the right thing, because in the body shop world, it's very common to have all these different bonus plans that may incentivize profitability or cycle time or CSI or whatever it's want to be. For me, I find that when everybody sees like, oh, Andrew takes quality so serious that he's willing to put that in a pot at the end of the month, give that to them as a reward for achieving the quality standards that we have.
Yeah. Well, and that you touched on the answer to my question already a little bit, but I want you to go into it a little bit more, because what I see a lot happen in shops is they think they have a process. They believe everybody's doing the same thing. The issue comes down the road when the next team. So you've got the check-in team, right? So then they process it. So potentially you've got your techs working on something, and then it goes to your paint prepper. And then the paint prepper sees that there was something not done. Yet they still push the dang car through. And you're like, where are the checks and balances in all of this? Where do people take responsibility type thing before we're delivering the car? But yet that was actually identified a long time ago, but nobody said anything. Like,
right. That's the number one destroyer of worlds, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes.
Like you're tolerating garbage. And it may sound harsh, but it really is. So
right.
It's, again, we talked a lot about culture earlier.
Yes.
You have to be able, once the culture is established and everybody knows, hey, I'm not out to get you. I'm ensuring the quality is being upheld. So rather than having the old school QC checklist that's done by a production manager at the end of the whole thing,
yes,
quality is built into those processes, and it's kind of the gatekeeper. So when for in your case, when you mentioned about body to paint, I have visual posted examples of what's an acceptable weld versus what's not a good weld. What's a proper plastic repair versus not. What's proper Bondo work supposed to be like.
Right.
And I should good and bad. One full of pinholes and one nice and clean and feathered properly, right?
Right.
So that way, anybody in the shop can measure quality, even if you're not a body man or a painter or a polisher. Anybody can look at the visual standard on the wall and see that this is the quality that needs to be produced. Does the car that I'm QCing right now, does that match of what's up on the wall? Yes, great. Okay, I'm going to accept the job into my department.
Okay.
Keep going. If it doesn't meet that quality standard, it goes back to the technician that was handing it off, and they correct the problem. And then it can pass on to the next step. And it's not a long QC process. I mean, people can fall into the trap of having like a 2-page QC checklist with probably 50 things on it, but we don't need to do that. I have maybe half a dozen items for each checkpoint in the shop. And then I also have a stall that was intentionally put into the middle of the shop as a choke point between body and paint. And the car has to be parked in that stall for quality to be checked there before it can move into the next receiving department.
Nice.
And vice versa. So when a car's coming out of paint and buff and it's ready to go back to reassembly, that same stall is used again to verify quality at that point. Because again, the technicians have all figured out, they know that if something doesn't meet the quality standard and they accept it, they're just as responsible as
that's it.
Produce the bad quality.
Right. It's like, who's going to take responsibility for this? And I think a lot of that goes to culture. How bought in are you? Are you trying to collect that check so you can bounce at the end of the day? And yeah, you saw it wasn't good, but leave it for somebody else to deal with. You know?
Right. And I don't have a shop foreman. I don't have a production manager. And I like that my people are able to have some autonomy. And they know that within their position, they have responsibility and the power to make decisions based on the processes we have and the goals that we have for quality and what they need to be. And they can make those decisions where I don't need to be behind them, standing over their shoulder the whole time, and watching them and pushing them.
Right.
It's all it's self-driven. And I think they, some of the guys that work for me came from other body shops where they've dealt with very, strict shop foremen, and they're doing what they were trained to do for that shop. But here it's not like that. I've never had to do that. I don't have plans to add a foreman at any point. It's just the way our shop is set up, and the culture we have and the processes allow everybody to kind of row the boat very smoothly in the same direction.
So do you mind sharing with us so people have an idea and kind of can compare the shop they're at versus the shop that you're at? Do you mind sharing, like, in sales approximately what you guys are doing a month?
Sure. We averaged for all of last year about 350,000, I think.
Okay.
Was our average. We've gone as high as about 442,000.
Okay.
my square footage here is only 7,500.
Wow.
So my sales per square foot is somewhere in the $38 per square foot.
Wow.
Like I said, it is not a big operation. And that's why I don't look at the normal metrics that a lot of managers look at. For me, I look at as an efficiency measure and waste and everything else. The fact that we're only 7,500 square feet, that we can produce that much out of such a small shop. And that's not even the ceiling. I project that we should be able to do at least 500,000 out of here with before space becomes a major issue.
Wow. Yeah. So because you've got all these checks and balances in place with your procedures, which what a beautiful thing. So what is your return rate then? Because things happen, and you don't like the customer's coming back with issues, or it gets to delivery and now all of a sudden, oops.
It's a problem. Right.
Yeah.
The goal here is less than 5%, which is fairly generous. So that when you average that out, it's maybe 1 to 3 cars a month.
That's not much.
So the goal, every technician, that's part of their performance is rework. So I even incentivize that as well. If they keep the target, if they stay below 5% for the month, I kick in some money to them at the end to thank them for maintaining that. And they take that very serious. The way the system is, I mean, when I got here 5 years ago, every other car came back with problems. Every other car. And we were losing and hemorrhaging out money because of quality and all that. And this was a traditional shop. When I got here, there was no real process in here. So there was a lot of time worked on quality and how to measure quality and training and all that to get that all to a much better place. So now when there's an issue in the shop, it's just like at Toyota's factory, when there's a problem on the assembly line, the whole line shuts down for them to figure out what happened. And then they all come up with a solution. So it's the same thing here. They take that very, very seriously.
I bet. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And I think a lot of shops don't take into account how expensive rework is. Yeah. I think, so that's why I'm really big on the checks and balances thing versus waiting till the typical way, just like you were saying. We've got the production manager who's kind of overseeing to some general level. And then at the end, QC's the car. And now we got to start the whole process basically all over again. It's like, so imagine how much more profitable as a shop owner or even shop managers, how much more profitable your shop could be. So I think incentivizing your people is going to cost you way less than having to redo all those cars.
Yeah. And like I said, they feel bought in. They see that quality is not something that just sits in the back. It's not something on the wall. You see the motivational things that people it's not something that is forgotten. It's in the forefront of every process that's done. And you can't pass, a job into the next receiving department without it being properly signed and the quality control check being performed the way it's supposed to be performed. Because that's the other thing. People will pencil whip down the QC checklist, and did they really check it?
Right.
And then, because they know when it gets to me at the end, I should only see maybe like a little tiny issue at the very end when someone gives me because I look at every car before it goes, but my QC doesn't take any more than maybe 3 to 5 minutes, unless it's a train wreck of a job that was in the shop for a long time. That might take a little longer, but overall, I should struggle to find something wrong.
So are you personally delivering every vehicle?
I don't talk to every client, but I will some of the ones where it's more of a serious repair and a very technical job, and there's some other underlying issues. I will be involved with those, but I try to limit that so that way I can be more available to my team and empower them to be making decisions and supporting the customer.
Right. So one thing I noticed recently, and I'm going to run this by you. I had my vehicle fixed at Jaguar. I have a Jaguar, and they just did a service on it. There was a couple funky things picking it up, and I went and picked it up the other day and sat in the driver's seat, and I was like, "Oh, this thing's so off," So all I have to do, it's already preset, So I press my number 1 button, set it up. Okay, now I'm good to go. And I thought that's one of those little things that I think oftentimes when we're running a shop, when we're working in a shop, we get so caught up in the process of things that we forget about the things that the customer cares, our guests care about. Did we do the intake forms properly? Did we give them good phone when they called? Were we polite? And I thought, these are the little things that they say the devil's in the details. If Jaguar, when that girl delivered my vehicle, if she would have put my seat back to the preset and I got in, I would have been like, thank you for going that extra little touch. Took you 2 seconds to push that button when you got out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't even know why I'm bringing that up right now, but I feel like you're the type of shop that would think of these things, or not necessarily that you're presetting, and maybe you could think about it because it would be a great idea. But the things that beyond like our team and working really hard as the number one BM shop in the United States, what are the extra little things we're doing from the customer besides doing a great job, which is an amazing thing, and not having a lot of quality issues. That's all an amazing thing. But on the consumer side, they're like, yeah, you fixed my car right. Isn't that your job anyway?
Right. I think at the core of that, whether it's an employee on your team or it's a customer, people just want to be heard. And they want to know that you care and that you're concerned about them, and that your concerns are your concerns. So during check-in, I have a specific form. We call it more of like a damage consultation. And because it's more about getting their concerns out in the open, finding out what their biggest worries are about this whole process, whether it's rental car or aftermarket versus used or OEM.
Right.
Out-of-pocket expenses or any number of things, right?
Yeah.
Because when people come here, they already know that we're certified, we're going to do things right, the car's in good hands and all that. So making sure that things don't get ignored and that we do the no update, we do the, just constant communication, being available, not letting them feel like they're ignored. That all contributes to making things very painless for them. And you don't really need to bend over, like the little details you talked about. We do variations of that, but people appreciate that. But I think overall, at the end of it, they just don't want to feel like you're processing a number and you're just another job. It's just another car. It's just another week. That you're invested in them. And again, if employees don't feel like they have the bandwidth to spend that kind of time with a client because they have all these other tasks, that's why I don't have key-to-key estimators. To me, that's the number one issue why things like what you described can happen, because they are so busy trying to do everything that they're doing everything is being done poorly.
Right.
So having a separate, CSR or client care representative, whatever you want to call that role, and having a repair planner that can just focus on getting all the stuff on the estimate correct and researching the repair instructions and getting that all done, that lends itself to give an even better experience for them because they feel like they have a conduit to the shop, someone that's right there, whether a text or a phone call away, to be in there to help them and get them through.
And the proper personality. A lot of times our estimators are very analytical and maybe not the most friendly of people, and oftentimes our CSRs are. So that does make sense.
Right. I completely agree. And I think too many shops are spreading those people thin because it's hard to get people in the shop. So and that's where you hear of guys working 12, 14-hour days as a key-to-key estimator. You can't do that for very long. You do that for a couple of years, you're going to be burnt out and you're done. And you move on.
Right.
Whereas my repair planner can work an 8-hour day. He makes a great salary. He doesn't have to deal with customers. He does what he does best. This is someone who enjoys negotiating, enjoys being in the weeds of repair instructions and the technical side of the repairs, where maybe someone who's a people person or a people pleaser, they just want to be helping those kinds of people.
Right. Well, and you get to find all that out through your process of the hiring process, right?
Yes.
Is finding out who that person is, so then you can slot them perfectly, at least try them in that slot, make sure that they work out. So, I think you brought up some really good takeaways today for everybody listening, because no matter the size of the shop, Process. And I feel like we say the words, but do we really have one? And then after the process, then how to have a checks and balances, a QC bbefore the QC. Like, why are we waiting till the end to QC people? Why are we still doing that? I don't get it. My shops that have quality and control spots throughout the process, I mean, it diminishes things. And then taking responsibility.
Yeah, in a healthy way. Right? Yeah. Not in a defensive way where it's calling and, you don't know how to do Bondo. What's wrong with you? It's no, it's just, it's like, what can I do to help to get this through? Right. Did I do something wrong? Did I skip a step? What can you do? And painters and bodymen sometimes don't always have the best relationship, right?
Right.
My guys will, there's a very cohesive, team, and they don't mind communicating and helping each other for the common goal. Yeah. But it all starts with me. At the end, if I could give one overarching message, as I'm sure we're wrapping up here, it's that I have to realize what I am willing to tolerate. And if I tolerate mediocrity and poor performance and people coming in late and all these other things, that sends a message out to the whole shop that, hey, Andrew's okay with all that. No problem.
Right.
I could show up 15 minutes late. I could take a longer lunch and not clock back in on time. And I could do a poor job on my work and probably it'll be okay. And that sets the tone for if Andrew holds the line and that's him, I better hold the line too, because that's what's being expected of me. And that is very, very hard. I struggled with that in the beginning. It's not easy because there's days where your heart may not be in it, but you still got to hold that line. Otherwise, all these wonderful processes and quality and all these other things, they will fall apart as quickly as possible, because human nature will always be to look for the easiest route possible.
Right.
To get it to a point where it's good enough for me. And that may not be good enough for our customers.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's powerful. You had a little mic drop moment right there. That was
good. I'm tired of being the only guy doing this. At the end of the day, I don't like that. And I'm tired of being in conferences and events with other managers where they're like, this is not possible. This can't be done. Yes, it can. You got to want it bad enough first. And you got to take a hard look at yourself. If you're willing to do the work and you care about your people, you can get there and achieve these same things that I did. I'm not a rocket scientist. I love what I do, but at the same time, I have to be honest with myself about what I expect from everyone and what I will tolerate at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Lead by example, right? Yeah. What do they say? Actions or lessons are caught, not taught.
Yeah.
And and I always thought that's an interesting thing to say. And then I had children and I was like, oh yeah, for real.
Really true.
It's all about leading by example. Well, I appreciate you, Andrew, coming back on. Congratulations again. What an amazing feat that was. Yeah. And I hope that you can win it next year, second time in a row. Is that the goal now for everybody?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I like I said, I'm honored that we won, but I want others to carry the torch that I've carried. I want them to carry it as well. I hope people can see that it's your path. Something got you into this industry, and if you got into a managerial position, that meant you got there for some reason. You don't just generally land that by accident, right?
Right.
Something carried you to get you to that point. The people deserve your best at the end of the day. And I, even though yes, it'd be great to win again, I hope I inspire others to do the same thing. Because I don't mind having another plaque in my lobby. That would be great. But at the same time, it's not just about me. It's to prove that you can do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's what makes you so special, Andrew. It's not all about, me and the, yourself and the accolades.
That's really and I was blessed to have very good mentors that inspired this whole thought process in me, and I've carried it forward. And I feel the industry is at a very crucial turning point that hopefully this stuff can start to take off and make it an attractive industry for people to want to come into.
Yeah. 100%. Well, we'll have you back on again once you've hit that 500,000 and you've had to revamp your processes.
Thank you. I will let you know. Let you know.
Well, thanks again for coming on, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.